afternoon from the kitchen, folks. It's another experimental day in home brewing. I thought I'd finished brewing ciders for this season, and then my dad goes and gives me a load of apples. So yeah, one more big batch cider for the 2023 season. It's going to be a Vimto and hops flavour cider. Let's have a look at those key ingredients. So here they are. So here's the apples from my dad's tree. I have no idea what variety. Anybody would like to comment and tell me, I'd be happy to know. But there are 5.3 kilos of these apples here. I've got exactly 100 grams of dehydrated cascade hops grown in my own garden. And these have been dehydrated in a food dehydrator. I'm going to be using spring water, probably between 15 and 20 litres, but I don't actually know yet at this point exactly how much. I've got 3 bottles of Vimto cordial to go into this, and this Vimto cordial is in 725ml bottles. It's been downsized with shrinkflation. So I'm going to be putting 3 of those in there. I'm going to be giving it a bit of extra sugar for some oomph. Possibly up to 2 kilos, but I've not yet decided exactly how much is going to go in it. It's going to depend on the gravity. I'll be putting some pectolase in so that this hopefully will be a clearer brew because the apple will give it a pectin haze. My yeast of choice is craft ale yeast number 3 from bigger jugs, and I'm using an ale yeast, so hopefully it will have more of a medium dry finish than a dry finish. And I'll be feeding that yeast with a bit of nutrient. I've made Vimto ciders before, I've made hop ciders before, never before have I combined the two together. I think the sweetness of the Vimto and the bitterness of the hops should work well together. Let's find out. So I'm going to begin with the apples, and I've got my big chopper out. So with each of the apples, I'm simply going to cut it in half and then put it fully into the pan, like so. I'm keeping the cores, I'm keeping the stalks, I'm keeping everything there, it's fine. And that just goes into the pan. So I've got quite a few more to do. I'll come back to you when they're all in the pan. Right, that's all my apples chopped in the pan. I'm going to add a little bit of water in the bottom of the pan. I want there to be about 1 centimetre of water, and because I'm only using a bit, I'm just using tap water. I'm not going to worry about it. So I've got the pan on the ring. I'm going to put the gas on very low, and I want this steam to build up. So to that effect, the lid goes on, and with the apples now, it's simply a case of playing the waiting game. I've just taken the lid off, and I think it's pretty plain to see that that is mushable now. So I'm going to turn the heat off. I'm going to put the lid back on, steamy cam, and I'm just going to leave these to sit for a little while. I'll come back to you half an hour or so. So I'm back. Here's my setup. Here's my apples. Here's a pan with a sieve in it. This is what's going to happen. Ladle into pan. You can hear and see bits already dripping through. I'll get a bit more in and a bit more in. And in fact, I'm going to lift it out of the sink just for a bit of purchase. Pop it there. So it's now on my worktop. And if you hear some gurgling in the background, incidentally, that's what it is. It's not my tummy. Right, what I'm going to do is firstly, using a wooden spoon, push the apple through the sieve. So I'm going to stir it and crush it, stir it and crush it, stir it and crush it. So once I've got this lot through, I'll come back to you and show you where I am. I'll be a minute. So that's the first sieve load done. So that is waste. That's going to go on the gardener's compost. I'll just put that on a plate. Underneath is the good stuff, clung to the bottom and in the pan. Now I've got to repeat that entire process with all of this apple. It's going to take me a good half an hour. There's no point in you watching me do that. So once I've pureed all of the apple, I'll come back to you. Well, that was a bit of a mission. My left arm's like Popeye's, but let's have a look what I've got. That's all the apple puree from 5.3 kilos of apples, a complete wok full, which I'm just going to leave in there like that overnight. I've now got 2 empty pans and it's time to proceed with the recipe. So in my big empty pan, I'm going to put my hops. Smell gorgeous, actually, smell absolutely fine. They've been dehydrated now for about a month. And I'm putting both of these big tubs in. Now I'm going to rehydrate the hops. Now they're dehydrated so that they will be preserved. If I don't dehydrate them, then they're going to go off. So I need to dehydrate them to preserve them. I'm now going to rehydrate them. So that's 5 litres of water in, spring water incidentally, gives a cleaner flavour. And now I'm going to do another, so there's 10 litres of water going into the hot pan. Dramatic. So I'll give them a little poke around, make sure that they're all in the water and not on top. And they will fully rehydrate and flavour the water. So lid goes on pan, gas goes on low just like it did last time. And that is getting left now for a while. So with this pan, I need it to come to a simmer, a gentle simmer, and then I'm going to let it simmer for probably half an hour or so. Then I'm going to turn the heat off and leave it overnight so it makes a nice infused hop tea. Now I'm going to fill this pan as well, and this is going to become my sugar pan. I've just weighed my big pan and it weighs 2,022 grams. So I reckon there's probably about 1.8 kilos of sugar in here. So I'm just going to put it all in. I'm quite comfortable with that amount. So there we go. It looks a bit Breaking Bad, but it's all perfectly legit. The brewing sugar is dextrose monohydrate. It's a lot finer sugar than traditional granular sugar. The yeast has an easier job with it. There are some people that say you don't need to use dextrose monohydrate. Granulated sugar does just a good job. And you know what? It might do for them. But I have noticed the difference and I do prefer the dextrose. I do think it gives a cleaner end flavour, a bit less homebrewy. So I've got my big pan of sugar. I'm now going to add into it 5 litres of spring water. And that's almost filled the pan, but not quite. Now the nice thing about brewing sugar is it dissolves quite easily, but I will need to add some heat to it. So I've got my sugar on that back ring. I'm going to put the ring on low and ignition, and I'm going to let that warm through until the liquid is clear and I can see that the sugar has dissolved. Then I'm just going to turn the heat off and leave it overnight. So at the minute I'm playing a waiting game for that to happen and for the hops to be ready. I'll come back to you with an update in a little while. Just a 20-minute later update, and you can see that the brewing sugar has completely and utterly dissolved. So I'm happy with that. I'm going to turn that off and leave that now. The hops just here are still heating up. So I'm an hour in. Let's have a look. We're definitely getting there. See if you can see the colour of the liquid. Can't really, it's difficult to tell. But yeah, that's definitely leaching flavour into the water. It's got a little way to go yet though, I want it to come to a simmer. Not far off. Right, this is a good sign. Oh yes. So I'll give this a good swish around with the spoon. Yeah, that's tantalisingly close to a full-on simmer. Right, 10 minutes later. Oh, that's not simmering, that's boiling. That is done. Stick a fork in it. So I'm going to turn the heat off that. And that is now going to sit and steep overnight. The pan will cool down and I'll pick it all up tomorrow, which will be preparation day 2 / brew day 1. And I'll put all this together with the rest of the ingredients. Catch you then. Good morning folks, it's preparation day 2 / brew day 1 and it's now time to get all this lot put together. So I've got my apple puree, I've got my sugar water and I've got my hop tea, and in the sink is my Rich's fermentation bin which this will ferment in. Okay, my sugar water is absolutely room temperature. Not warm, not cold. That's just going to pour straight into the bucket. I've done that first because I want to use that pan in a second to help me when I'm straining the hops. So that's the bucket so far. I'm now going to add into that bucket the apple puree. Plop. I knew that was going to happen. So that needs scraping out a bit. And here's the tool for the job. It's very satisfying actually, scraping the edges. It reminds me of when I was a kid. I used to scrape the side of the bowl that my mum was baking in and then lick this. Okay, that's just about done. Just some bits around the edge there. Scrape them in. Anyway, I'm going to cover this up to keep any contaminants out just for now. And I'm going to get on with straining the hops. Let's have a look at those hops. So they've all sank to the bottom. And they have released tons of flavour into that water. You can see by the colour of it, so I'm happy enough with that. What I'm going to do now is fish out my hops using this sieve. I'm going to plonk them into the pan here with the colander and keep going back and forth. I'll not get 100% of them, but I'll get 95% of them this way. And then using the potato masher, I'm just going to mash the hops to squeeze the water out of them into the pan below. Once I've done that, the hops are going to go back out onto the garden as compost. I'll come back to you in a bit. I've got some squeezing to do. Right, that's what I've squeezed out of the hops. So I'm just going to pour that on top. And here's the big pan. I'm going to need to pour this and strain it as I pour it. So I'm going to have to hold the colander. Actually, what I'm going to do is pour it into the pan through the colander first. Easier. And then I know that the colander has caught any bits and bobs. It's not much, to be honest. And then pour this into the big bucket. And repeat. Done pretty good, to be honest. There's barely any hops left. So that goes into the big bucket. And I'm now on 20 litres, and that's just enough room for me to get my Vimto in. So I've ended up putting 15 litres of spring water into this. I shan't put any more in. So first bottle of Vimto. Oh, the smell of childhood, gorgeous. Second. And third. Now you'll note, or I need to let you know, that this Vimto does contain a preservative. I believe it's potassium sorbate. Let me just double check that with you. It is potassium sorbate, yeah. So that means that it will inhibit the fermentation. I could have boiled this first, right? But I've noticed with Vimto, if you put it in as it is, it just means that the fermentation takes about 2 days longer to develop and get going. It doesn't stop the fermentation happening. So that's why I haven't boiled it. So here is the bucket thus far. With my big spoon, I'm going to give it all a good stir around, because what I want is a consistent mixture, so that when I take the original gravity, I get an accurate figure. So a good mix all around. Right, let's take the original gravity. So in goes the hydrometer. And I'm at a reasonable original gravity, actually. It's not going to be a rocket fuel cider. It will finish between 6 and 7% is my prediction. And I'm looking at an original gravity of... It's on 1.052. I'm going to guess 6.8%. Let's see where it works out. So I'm going to get my dry ingredients now. So firstly, pectolase to hopefully break down pectic enzymes so it will finish a clearer brew. I'm going to add 1, 2 and 3 rounded dessert spoonfuls. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Next, my yeast nutrient. Now, I'm going to be honest with you, there's tons of nutrient in there, and I probably don't need this, but I'm going to add it anyway. So I'm going to add 1 and 2 heaped dessert spoonfuls. I won't put any more than that in. And finally, my yeast. Well, I'm just going to sprinkle this on top. So I'm going to cover the whole surface of the bucket. And that's plenty. So it's currently brew day 1. I'm not expecting this to get going properly before brew day 4 because A, the ale yeast is a slow starter, and B, the potassium sorbate from the Vimto is going to have an impact. Also, it's actually autumn, so the temperatures around the ambient temperatures aren't that high. I'm not starting it on a heat pad, but it may end up going on one. I don't mind a long and slow fermentation. I actually think it gives you a better product. So let's wait and see. So again, using my big spoon, I'm just going to encourage the yeast to merge a little bit and sink so it doesn't stay floating on top. There we go. I'm pretty sure that the yeast is going to have a jolly old time in there. Right, I've got a lot of tidying up to do. I've got to label the bucket up. I'll come back to you when I've done all that. Hey folks, I've moved into the living room and this is where my cider will ferment. It is slightly warmer in here than it is in the kitchen. So here it is in the bucket, Vimto and hops cider, original gravity 1.052, brew day 1, 26th of October 2023, and there's water in the airlock. I'll come back to you when fermentation begins, which is likely to be in about 4 days' time or so. I'll catch you then. Hey folks, just a quick update. It's brew day 5 and fermentation has started today. It's not fast, it's going very slow. Trying to keep the temperature up. Got the fire lit because it isn't very warm outside, but inside we're on a fairly consistent between 18 and 19 Celsius. So hopefully this will continue fermenting as is, and it should pick up, I would imagine, in the next day or so. I'll give you an update in a couple of days' time. Hey folks, it's brew day 10 for my Vimto and hops cider. I'm going to take the lid off today and give it a little stir. As you can see, it's still fermenting nice and steadily. I'm getting a big fat gassy bubble or two through every few seconds, so all good from my perspective. So I'm just going to lift the lid. So what I want to do is lift the apple material, which is predominantly sank to the bottom. Now this actually smells really Vimto-y, so I've got high hopes for it. Lots of CO2 being released. Sorry, Greta. And now lid goes back on, snapped into place. It'll take time for the pressure to build up again and for that to bubble, but it will happen very shortly. So that's me done for now. I'm actually away for a week as of tomorrow, so that when I come back, it's probably going to be finished. But I'll give you an update when I do come back anyway. Okay, catch you then. Good afternoon from the kitchen, folks. This is brew day 24 for my Vimto and hops cider, and today I'm going to be racking it out of the big bucket and into demijohns. Admittedly, this is a little bit late for racking. Ideally, I would have liked to have taken it off the apple puree before brew day 15. There is a small chance it can lead to off flavours. I'm hoping that's not been the case though, because it's been pretty cool. Fermentation's been fairly slow with that, so I'm hopeful that there's not going to be any sort of exacerbation of off flavours through the apple puree deteriorating inside there. I've not been able to do this before now because I've been away physically, so I'm now back and it's time to get on with it. So just looking at the airlock, you can see it's equalised pressure, there's no bubbling at all, so it's time to get this lid off. The overarching smell is Vimto, but the hop smell does come through also. And that is what it's looking like. So I'm racking today using a plastic jug. I'm going to be transferring from there into the demijohns. In each demijohn I've got a funnel, and in each funnel I've got a coffee filter which will keep any of the bits of trub out. I'm trying to get this as trub free as possible. So it's just a case of dip and pour. And dip and pour. I'll come back to you when I've got the first demijohn filled up. Okay, I've got my first demijohn filled, and as you can see, it actually looks pretty nice and clear. I'm not going to have to put finings in this one, and I'm hoping that they'll all settle nice and naturally. If I just look inside the filter, you can see that there's bits and pieces stuck around the edge there, so it's actually done a good job at keeping the trub out, so I'm quite happy with how this is working. I've got another 3 demijohns to fill. It's exactly the same process. You don't need to watch me do that. So when I've filled all 4 demijohns, I'll come back to you. So just a little update as I'm doing it. You can see there's number 1, number 2 and number 3 is getting very cloudy. And in fact, I'm now basically on 5 litres of trub, which I'm having to run through the coffee filter like this and then agitate it to get the liquid to separate. But what I am getting is a lot of microparticles coming through. So this will end up with a good layer of sediment. And that's why this one and this one here will be so milky. Back in a bit. Well, that's nearly taken me an hour in total. It was a right faff shaking the filter around, getting it through. This is what I've got. So there's the 3 that you saw earlier, and this is the one that I had in the sink. Now this one, unfortunately, I've got this much headspace, and that's too much headspace. It will go off, it will go vinegary. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to top it up with some apple juice from concentrate. Now, if I was doing this properly, I should have taken a gravity reading before doing this, added the apple juice from concentrate, and then taken another gravity reading, so I could have worked out what the ABV was before I added the apple juice, and then I can work out a final ABV at the end by looking at the re-racked gravity and the final gravity, adding the 2 ABVs together. If this sounds like lots of ABVs and figures, don't worry about it. But basically there's something I should have done, a step that I should do here, which I can't be bothered to. That's what I'm trying to say to you. That's what I'm not doing. And there it is, done with my bendy airlock. Okay, I've got some tidying up to do. I'll come back to you when I've done that and show you where I am. Okay, everything's done now, and I'm in the entrance porch where these are now going to sit for a month or so. Let's have a look at them. So I've labelled up the first one, Vimto and hops. 26 of October 23 was brew day 1, racked on the 18th of 11/23, OG 1.052. That's number 1, number 2, number 3 and number 4, next to some tomato paste wash. Now I put things in the entrance porch because it's the coldest room in the house by temperature in winter. And with colder temperatures, any particles which are left in suspension in there, which is what causes cloudiness, will more likely fall to the bottom. And I can already see on number 3 just there that a sediment line is already beginning to form. And if you look at the top of number 3, I'm not sure if it shows on the camera or not, but it's already slightly darker at the top than it is going down. So this should clear up nice and naturally. So I'll be looking to bottle these in about a month's time. So I'll catch up with you then. See you later, kids. Good evening from the kitchen, folks. I've had a bit of a break from brewing, you could say, but today I'm back with you for a Vimto and hops cider update. This is brew day 181. Yes, brew day 181. That's how long ago I started this brew off. It's been in the demijohns for 5 months. It's been wrapped 5 months ago. It's been in the demijohns. It's been in my office, which is a cool room in winter, and it's just cleared naturally and nicely. Let's have a look at it. So here you can see I've got 4 demijohns, and they're all lovely and clear, and you can see straight through like so. And what I want to do today is get this out of here and into all these bottles. So yeah, it's big bottling day. My least favourite part of the brew process, but a necessary evil. Let's crack on. So first of all, I need to get some sugar, or a teaspoonful of sugar I should say, into each of these bottles that's in the sink. And this is priming sugar, so if there is any yeast left alive in there, it will find this sugar, it'll smash it apart, it will create CO2, and that will give this a sparkle. That's the theory anyway. So then it's bung out. The siphoning tube goes in. I want to try and keep it out of the very thin sediment line, which is at the bottom down there. I'm going to push it down and down and down and down. A centimetre above will be just fine. And that is what that is. So I'm going to be siphoning into bottles in the sink, but the first bit is going to go into the hydrometer tube. Let's crack on. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Lovely, and into the first bottle. Right, I've got a nice amount in there. It smells very fruity. So hopefully it will have a sparkle. I can see some minute bubbles around the hydrometer, so that's a good sign. And you can see a few bubbles rising around the neck of the bottle, so again, hopefully that is a positive. Rushing out. So I'm just going to film the first demijohn emptying today, because there's no point in me doing it for all 4 demijohns, but just to go through the process. So I might get 6 full bottles out of this one. If I don't, I'll get very close to 6 full bottles, but the rest of them I'll probably only get 5 out of. And there you go, there's bubbles in the siphoning tube, which tells me that that process is over for now. So I've got 5 full bottles and 1 that's nearly full, but I'll continue topping it up with demijohn number 2 shortly. But in the interim, I need to get bungs and cages onto these bottles. Right, 1 bottle, 1 bung. The bung has been softening in very hot water, just burnt my fingers. Bung goes onto bottle and pushed in, like so. I'll probably have to use a tea towel because I'll end up with quite a sore hand if I keep doing that. But that bung is in. Ding, that's my dinner. And now I'm going to put a cage on it. I'm going to pull the cage down. It's quite a sore finger job this, so top tip, don't use your fingers. Use a little fork. A full-size fork works just as well. And then I'm going to twist the cage so it holds the bung in place. So why am I doing this? When carbonation builds up inside this bottle from the yeast which is left alive in there, if there is any, eating the priming sugar, then pressure will build up when CO2 is made. When pressure builds up, corks go pop, unless there's a cage on there to hold it in place. Right, that is 1 done. That is 1 bottle bunged and caged. You've seen me do it once. You don't need to watch me keep doing it. I'll come back to you shortly. That's my first 5 bottles bunged and caged. Taps going on. Shower attachment. Let's get these rinsed off because they've got sticky on the outside. And now I'm going to place these bottles on this tea towel on my cooker to drain off. Right, they're done for now. I've got to repeat everything that you've just seen. I am going to come back to you when all of these bottles are full of cider. See you then. Well, that was a bit of a job, I'll tell you. Anyway, I've managed to get 23 700ml bottles done. So I need to have a little tidy up in the kitchen because it's quite messy in here, as you can see. And I've got enough for a little sampler just there, and I'll do the gravity reading as well very shortly. I'll be back when I've had a tidy, plus I'm getting stared at by somebody that wants to come in and eat biscuits. Hello! And you know that cats can make you do things, don't you? This one can. Come on then. Come on, you made me open the door. Are you coming? Don't be that cat. Literally no love or affection whatsoever. And that's what she really came for. She was literally in for 2 minutes and she's back out now staring at me again. Flipping cats. We blooming love them though, don't we? Right, I've had a good wipe down, everything's nice and clean. I've got my demijohns now with sanitising fluid in to get them clean for the next brew that's going to go into them. I've got my sampler over there, but let's have a look at the gravity and the ABV for this brew. So I've got my hydrometer tube just here. It's low. I am finishing on a final gravity of 0.992. Now it started on 1.052. Let's do the maths. Right, the trusty iPhone calculator. 1.052 minus 0.992 equals 0.06 multiplied by 131.25 equals, drumroll please, 7.875%. Let's just say 7.9%. And I'm really pleased with that outcome actually. That's the ballpark I was looking for. So I've got my sampler just here. See what it's like. It's definitely hoppy. It's got a round fruitiness with the hops, but it's not distinctly Vimto. It's the hops which is the strongest of the two flavours that are in there. But then after that initial bittering, there's something sweet on the back burner. It's definitely not unpleasant. That'd be a nice summer drink. I can't wait for it to be carbed. If it carbs, fingers crossed. Right, I better make some labels for those bottles. Well, I'm just sat in the conservatory enjoying this. And while I'm here, I've got my Fomamo Bluetooth printer. It's connected to my mobile phone. And I'm going to press print now. I've made a label, Vimto and Hops Cider, 7.9%, today's date. I've told it I want 23 copies. Print now. Let's the magic happen. Casually done. Okay, I've just got to dry each bottle off now. And then once dry, apply the label. Make sure it's the right way around. Get that on. Slightly skew whiff, never mind. Okay, that's one done. I've got 22 more to do. I'll come back to you when they're done. All my labels are now on my bottles. So this is the living room, this is my drinks cabinet, this is where my bottles are going to condition now for the next 7 or 8 weeks. I'm going to give them a couple of months. So it's the middle of April-ish, 24th of April, so I'll give it equivalent time in June, 24th of June-ish or something like that before opening. So up here, it's currently 17.5 degrees Celsius. It's the evening, it's April, it's only going to get warmer. And we need some nice warmth for the conditioning to happen. So the conditioning process will help the flavour to develop, but it will also help to develop the sparkle. So the priming sugar that I put in there will get smashed by the yeast, fingers crossed, and it will build up some carbonation and it'll be a sparkling cider. That's the plan. Let's see what happens. I will come back to you when I open it at the end of June, so you'll probably be watching this at the end of summer, but I'll catch you then. Good evening from the kitchen, folks. It's the grand opening and tasting night for my Vimto and Hops Cider. This is brew day 226. This has been a good long brew, so hopefully, fingers crossed, the taste will reflect that. Especially fingers crossed, as I've already given a couple of bottles away. So I hope it does taste all right. You can see, hopefully, that the bung has raised. So I'm confident we've got some carbonation in this. I'm saying that. There's been times when there hasn't been, let's face it. But anyway, shut up, Stuart, get it opened. So, ooh, right. I need my little fork for my delicate little fingers. Oh. Right. Oh, there we go. Cage is broken anyway. So, and that was one provided by Thomas from Woodside Micropub. My favourite little micropub around this parts. Right. So, oh, we had a pop. Lovely. Nice. Rush of bubbles to the neck of the bottle. Okay, I'm happy. What does it smell like? I'm getting the hops and I'm getting something sweetish, but it's not distinctive as Vimto. See what it looks like in the glass. Nice delicate colour. Distinct carbonation. Yeah. I'm happy. You're happy. I'm happy. We're all happy. Right. What does it smell like properly? Now, really lovely, rich smell from that. There's lots going on there. Distinctly ciderish now. With hops. And somewhat fruity. That's got to be the Vimto. Let's see what it tastes like. That's nice. That's nice, bordering on an IPA. That is ridiculous. Okay, I'm scratching my head now looking at this. That tastes like an IPA. That's the hoppiness, obviously. But weirdly, like a really sort of fruity IPA. That is bizarre. If you'd given me this with a blindfold on, I would have said it was some kind of fruity IPA. That's bonkers. I wonder if that's a sign of aging because it has been so long. Perhaps that's the strategy going forward. And I've got tons of demijohns now. I've got over 20, so it's not really a hardship to do that. That is really, really good. I'm going to go as far to say as that's probably the favourite cider I've ever made. I think that could be my best cider yet. It's absolutely gorgeous. And I love my hoppy IPAs, so it's no wonder that I think it's gorgeous. Now, it's funny because I remember when it went in the demijohns and I had a little nifter, I was thinking, oh, I've added too many hops, it's going to be too hoppy. But they've balanced, and that's really, really nice. Now, on the dryness scale, I'd say it's distinctly a medium. It might be very shy of a medium, as in like slightly drier than a medium, but we're talking splitting hairs. It's medium to me, that. It's very easy to drink, and at 7.9%, dangerously easy to drink, especially on a nice sunny evening like today is. Anyway, I better get a picture for the front of the film. Are we ready? On 3. 1, 2, 3. So I am extremely, extremely happy with this. It tastes really, really very, very good. My favourite cider yet. And I was just getting to the point where I was thinking, yeah, am I over hopping stuff? Am I putting too many hops in? I've had to stop doing that now. No. I think I've got this one just right. Anyway, folks, I hope you've enjoyed the film. I've enjoyed the process, and I'm certainly going to enjoy the cider. So I will catch you on the next film, whatever that may be. See you later, folks. Cheers. Excuse me. The film that you've just watched is a Moss Home and Garden production. You can find more by going to www.mosshomeandgarden.co.uk. I'd just like to say thank you very much for supporting my YouTube channel and for watching my films. It really is very much appreciated. If you haven't already done so, please subscribe to my YouTube channel in order to receive future updates about the home and garden films which I upload. You can find my YouTube channel by going to www.mosshomeandgarden.co.uk. Please click on the red subscribe button. When you've done that, a little bell will appear If you press that also, then you'll get future updates about the films which I upload. If you like my films, if you like my style of filming, then you might also like my travel channel, which you will find by going to youtube.com/Stuart Moss or type in www.mosstravel.tv. Again, if you could subscribe to that channel, it would be hugely appreciated. If you'd like to get Moss Home and Garden updates on Facebook, then please open Facebook and do a search for Moss Home and Garden, and you will find the page. If you like the page, then you will get future updates on there. And if you'd like to connect on Instagram for home, garden and travel photography, as well as some stories, then my username is StuMoss, STUMOSS. If you'd like to connect on Twitter, then my username is @StuartMoss. And if you'd like to contact me about film usage or any other issue, please just email me on stewmosshomegarden@gmail.com. Once again, thank you very much for supporting my channel, for watching my films. I do appreciate it. I'd just like you all to have a great day.